Now let's ignore the fact that turning the Addams Family into a video game is by itself weird, because it is. Obviously, turning a sitcom into a platformer is a strange decision, one we will see a lot of as the years of the Super Nintendo roll by. But why does the player-controlled Gormez sound like a car when he skids to a stop? Why does he honk when he gets hit? Ocean. Somehow we miss you today. But sound and music aside, the Addams Family isn't a bad game. You start off in front of the Addams Family mansion, to put it mildly, and from there you can go into any level in whatever order you choose to complete the task at hand. The hub concept does a lot to make this game interesting. Each doorway has different environments and enemies inside, and there are enough secret areas to make exploration worth it. It feels almost like a Metroidvania game, but there aren't really any areas that you need to power up your character to traverse and head back to find new unexplored corridors. You see, controlling Gormez is standard for the platforming genre. He can be surprisingly squirrely to maneuver at times. He's got a lovely bounce. Precise jumps can be a bit of a challenge. But the game is generous when it comes to jumping on monsters. There were times when I should have been hit by a bad guy, but, you know, I was given credit for stomping it instead. I mean, that's not to say the game is easy. I mean, I died numerous times by misjudging where the line was between me hitting them and getting hit myself. This was made much worse whenever I had the aforementioned sneakers power up. I can never tell what those did because they made Gormez impossible to control. But I digress. I mean, we really should be going back to the start of this whole review. I suppose really how I should first talk about this is, plotline wise, don't expect anything too much of a tie-in with the original movie from 1991. This isn't the story of the Addams Family there, even though the artwork does suggest it on the box. This is a ocean Euro style platformer. This really goes through the idea of Gormez as a central character. It's trying to save all of the members of the Addams Family who have been kidnapped and have been put in various locations around the mansion. To say it's a bland plot, yeah, you'd be right. It's very familiar to anyone in the UK and Europe who may have played other kind of ocean style games. There's always a task, multiple levels, and it's generally a tackle A of a different environment, potentially with tricky puzzles maybe to negotiate round, tackle route B where potentially you can't touch any enemy, tackle route C where effectively it could be a parkour style course where precision timing and jumping could be the aim of the day to get the final character. These games are taxing, tricky, and they do have a bit of weight behind them, and in that way I do quite like Addams Family. It's kind of, I can't explain it. It's very much almost like a warm hug. The game itself is bland. It's not really that inspiring, yet the cutesy style of the character design, albeit in a morbid kind of semi-cartoon gothic sense, makes it endearing. You enjoy the style and the look of it, that it makes you want to push a little bit further into other areas to see what other tricks and designs that have been incorporated into the game. Knowing it's one whole level and you're basically going from the hub world into each individual wing of the house, it makes for a more interesting performance. Can't solve one particular route, give up, go to another wing, take another chance at another character. And it's those kind of titles I actually find quite warming, because you aren't ever gated from progress, unlike Metroidvanias and Castlevanias and the ilk around that sort of style. you have that flexibility and freedom to see majority of the game from point one. Only skill is really holding you back from completing each of the areas and eventually making it up to the final part of the course. And so for me, it felt very much back in the 90s, if you were paying the £40–50 for this, it felt a fairly decent value for money. You were seeing most of the game for the price of entrance fee, which usually would have been held back and been a bit of frustration and something that you would have been hopeful and reliant on maybe a cheat code to turn up in a later issue of your favourite magazine before you'd be able to progress further. And yet, if I'm talking about cheat codes in that kind of sense, then I have to really talk about Addams Family's greatest secret and yet most enjoyable part. The game is rammed, so full of secret rooms and hidden objects and hidden routes. It is crazy. Yeah, it's kind of exactly what you'd expect from the Addams Family residence. It's very reminiscent of the TV show and the movies, where somebody would go down a false corridor. Take for example, as soon as you enter the house, go directly left underneath the main door upstairs and just hit up as though you're entering a normal door. And you'll find basically a hidden door there that takes you through to Pugs's secret den. You can grab a few power-ups here and go around the edge of the sides, and then go to the edge at the top of the yellow stop sign above the door you came in and hit up in that area of the wall, and then you're going to go behind the stairs again with more hidden rooms, each one containing bonus points and additional components to allow you to travel further into the game. And yet, this is a wondrous thing. It almost felt like this was hidden in the game by the developers as a kind of little cheat room for the quality control guys, the ones who are having to test this thing over and over again during development, that maybe they were going to have to stock up on a huge amount of lives before they go and tackle one particular wing, just to make sure that everything works as properly as it should do, rather than have to reset the game and go back through a huge amount of time just to speed up the process. And the fact that's still in there, not mentioned in any particular way or hinted at in any part of the game, but is such a reward at the very start, makes you interested to start hitting every individual wall as you're gradually going around, looking for other such secrets, and you are going to find them. Yeah, that kind of ingenuity and, I suppose, inspiration is usually something reserved to the likes of Nintendo. Yet somehow Ocean and the team behind this came up with such a interesting idea purely by accident. Was it deliberate? It's something I really want to ask the developers, and really want to almost have that conversation, to pick apart their brains into every part of the development process on this game, just to understand why certain things were the way they are. Why are the speeches erratic? Yeah. Why can you grab the sword and the fairs so early on and then get straight up into an area that you normally wouldn't be able to access, and yeah, almost hit areas that are technically out of bounds for until later on in the game. There is so much exploration in this game. It's insane. But for such a trivial title, it's unique. It's something that it's tangible that it shouldn't be. I suppose challenging is the word, but is it mediocre? And I think that's partly where Ocean fell down on this. It's a great game, and it could be a great game. I think there were other polishes that Ocean needed to take time with. I felt there were other parts of the levels that needed further development, just to make it an astoundingly brilliant game. There were places they could have expanded into the tower. There could have been, yeah, action sequences, particularly with minecarts, or if you take from the film premise, particularly as this was meant to be a game tie-in, if they were taking the whole secret route to go to the treasure vault, that in itself could have been a final mini-game and an end goal that you were trying to unlock, in which case you were trying to find components of all those keys around the house rather than the members of the family. There were little tweaks and changes that I felt that if they could have done so much more to tie in the game to the movie at the time, this could have been an absurdly popular tie-in license, something that Ocean was notoriously famous for phoning it in a hell of a lot, and would do continuing afterwards with the likes of The Running Man, Untouchables, and many others. So as I think really as an overview and the final thoughts for this title, what kind of rating would I give it? I rated every one of my games out of 5, 1 being absolutely terrible to 5 being brilliant, and I very much treat anything that's a 3 out of 5 as an exactly average. And yet, for all of its faults, even its frustration in sort of enemy hitboxes, whether forgiving or unforgiving, or how it pointedly defies its difficulty settings, it's still a game that I will happily put in the console and play again. And there's not that many games in the Super Nintendo era that you can genuinely say, outside of collecting, that you would pick up and play just for fun. The simple answer is this is a play it. It's a great 4 out of 5. It's one that can be completed in an afternoon with the right amount of skill, and yet you could spend other afternoons just happily looking for the secrets. For me, it's a quintessential game that you should have for the Snes. It's not the popular one, it's not something that's a fast beat 'em up, a shoot 'em up in that respect. It's not one of the Mario platformers, it's not one of Nintendo's first parties. But it's something that, if you speak to other people who've played it and enjoyed it the same way, they will all have fond memories. And that coming from an external party is a rare achievement and something that should be rewarded. If you get the chance, I urge to replay it on your favourite mini console. Get hold of the original cartridge and find the original Snes and bang it in for a quick weekend. But in honesty, it's something that really should be enjoyed. For the latest news, reviews, retro footage, retro reviews, and everything else in between. Until then, like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care. For more reviews like this, check out that retrovideogamer.com for the latest news, reviews, retro footage, retro reviews, and everything else in between. Until then, like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.